Dead Rising was released August 8, 2006 to the Xbox 360. It became one of the reasons to own the 360, for it was a clear example of what the new hardware could do. The game was often praised for the sheer amount of enemies on screen and the numerous ways to kill said enemies. The game took heavy inspiration from George Romero's Dawn of the Dead. The zombies are slow and easy to deal with in isolated situations, but the sheer number of them makes it impossible to contain. The game takes place in Willamette Mall, located in Colorado. Zombies have broken in, and Frank West, photographer-journalist, must uncover the truth of the epidemic, while escaping with both his and hopefully many others' lives. For the time, Dead Rising looks serviceable, but by today's standards, it looks barely better than the PS2. Polygons are noticeably low quality on zombies, and you can almost count the pixels on pictures found on walls. But this was done on purpose, as Dead Rising took the approach of quantity over quality. The low quality textures were designed so the system wouldn't be as strained when rendering hordes of zombies. The developers did claim that there could be a total of 800 zombies on screen at a time. Fun fact, Dead Rising was often accused of causing the red rings on early models of the 360. During gameplay, these low graphics are less noticeable due to the chaos, but cutscenes are another beast entirely.
You! Stop right there! Do you have any idea what you've done? Why did
Also, there's this apparent model of a dog. Yeah, it's not great. Audio work for the gameplay is good, but again, cutscenes are awkward. Just listen to this.
Where are the others?
I don't know. I hope they got away.
There's really long pauses in between sentences, and it doesn't feel natural. A lot of the cutscenes suffer from this problem, so I hope you're ready for it. Weapon sound effects are fantastic though. Just listen to this katana. It's a clean cut, and it sounds bloody too. It's great, especially since you're going to be using it quite a bit. Out of all the audio work, the music choices were just perfect though. The calm and often mundane mall music clashes perfectly with the horror, blood, and guts of the zombies combat. Boss fights use heavy metal or rap, which is a good way to up the tempo and get the player's blood pumping. As a quick side note, Gone Guru was perfect for the convicts. The convicts are the only respawning boss in the game, so it's a real good, clear indicator whenever you enter the park so that you know that you can either take a safer route or just get prepared to get absolutely destroyed by these guys. Let's talk about the gameplay loop though. You're given 72 in-game hours, which translates to about 5 minutes per hour. There's a main story case at most hours and must be completed within the allotted amount of time. If these cases are missed or if a story-sensitive character dies, then the true ending is lost, though you can continue to play. Besides the main story, Otis, a mall employee, will watch surveillance cameras and inform you of side missions periodically. These missions are also time-sensitive and can be missed if you are not careful, but all side missions include survivors or boss fights, which gives off massive amounts of experience in the form of PP. Good job, Capcom. These missions aren't mandatory, which is nice, so if you don't really feel like saving survivors or dealing with the AI, you can just go off and start killing zombies and just have fun that way. Though this game features a leveling system in which Frank gains buffs to strength, speed, and bonus inventory slots. You also unlocked unarmed skills like jump kicks and suplexes the higher the level you are, so saving those survivors and getting those massive amounts of experience might be what you want to do early on. I'm going to warn you out right here, if you want to play the story, or if you want to save as many survivors as you can, then this game has a massively difficult curve. A fresh new save starts off incredibly difficult. Frank has low health, he's slow, and he can only carry 4 weapons, and he's missing many of his essential skills. If you plan on going for a perfect run, saving all survivors and not missing any of the story cases, what I recommend is that you just have fun, gain enough levels until you at least get your second speed upgrade. All these missions are time sensitive, which means having proper pathing and being fast will make it so you're not being as punished. I got a little bit sidetracked there, but I want to emphasize how hard this game can be early on. Like I said earlier, a new save will have 4 health bars, 4 inventory slots, and will be very slow. If you follow the story, then you will have to go to the food court and immediately fight a boss. If the player doesn't know the mall layout, then they can easily miss 2 of the hidden Uzis before you fight the boss. Without those Uzis, this fight is really difficult. After the fight, the player will have to go through Alfresco Plaza, which is always surrounded in zombies. You're left to your own devices in the entrance plaza, and this is kind of when the games really given to you to do what you want, and there's an easily missable survivor here. After a little bit, Otis will call you and he'll tell you that there are 2 more survivors in the alfresco plaza. This means you now have to drag yourself and this survivor through the most zombie-dense area in the game. Once you save those 2 survivors, you'll go back to the food court. Now you have 3 survivors. Good job. Oh wait, Otis called. There's another survivor in the alfresco plaza. Guess what you get to do now? Here's an extra little bonus to the survivor too. She has to be carried. If you don't carry her, then it'll take her forever to get anywhere. She also can't carry weapons, so she can't really defend herself properly. So great, we now have 4 survivors, one of which has to be carried. But because your movement speed is so low and you're incredibly slow, it's now 7 o'clock, which means zombies are more aggressive. Also, past 7 o'clock on the first day, the convicts will spawn in the park. So you now have to keep your 4 survivors alive, one of which, again, has to be carried, while avoiding the convicts, and at some point saving the new survivor in the middle of the park, which the convicts will kill if you aren't fast enough. Make it back to Paradise Plaza, take some pictures with Kent, and lastly make it back to the security room. I want to point out that this is just like the first half an hour of the game. But this is what the standard gameplay loop is. You go out with the intention of fighting one boss or saving one survivor group, but then Otis will call you and there'll normally be about 2 to 3 more survivor groups that need saved. Now I'm sure that sounded really difficult, and believe me it is, but it just gets worse. There's a long pause in between new scoops between night 1 and day 2, which was a giant misstep in my opinion. Day 2 has a high concentration of scoops, and they are all located all over the place in the mall. Unlike day 1, where there was a smooth path. While it was hard, I wasn't in absolute panic. As an example, the Scoops Restaurant Man, Photo Challenge, Above the Law, The Cult, and Hanging by a Thread all spawn between 11 to 1 p.m. That's within a 15-minute time period. At the same time, if they haven't been completed yet, the Hatchet Man, the Coward, and Twin Sisters can be active during this exact same time period as well. That's 8 separate side missions all happening at once. To say this is difficult is an understatement, and just pushing 2 of these cases in that dead space in between night 1 and day 2 could have really helped out with the pacing. I also haven't mentioned the giant zombified elephant in the room. If you don't know anything about Dead Rising, at some point you've probably heard about the notoriously bad Survivor AI. Well, guess what? It's completely true. This AI is really bad, but let's get into why it's so bad. There are multiple types of survivors. I'll put them into a few categories. Standard. These guys follow your order, do a decent job with weapons, though since you can't interact with them, you need to rely on their AI pathing. There's the courageous ones. These guys go out of their way to help other survivors or fight zombies. They get stuck in hordes a lot. There's the emotionally crippled. These guys are the worst survivors in my opinion. They stop and have panic attacks randomly, which depending on what survivors you have can cause a chain effect. If you have plenty of courageous survivors, then all of them will stop to try to save this guy, which means they're now all stuck in a horde. Aaron and Gordon are the only survivors that I know that have this trait, but it can be brutal, especially since the panic animations can last 5 to 8 seconds, giving zombies plenty of time to maul them. There are the hand-holding survivors, and they are fine, but they can't hold weapons, and the hand-holding breaks pretty easily. At least you can control where they're going. And then there are the godsends, cripples. These guys are the gods of Dead Rising. Just look at this. Zombies can't grab you. They do a good job of defending themselves, and I control their movements. Crippled are the best in Dead Rising, unless you have a group. Because now you can't save your group because you're holding the cripple. So those are the quirks, but let's talk about the real issue with the survivors, which is the pathing. From what I've noticed, the AI is assigned to lanes. They will not diverge from these given paths, even if said path is covered in zombies. It's the same reason why you can see the survivors constantly getting caught in the potted plant near the entrance to the warehouse. It means the survivors need to be babysat, otherwise they're just going to get themselves absolutely killed. You can set waypoints and clear the path for them, but make sure you watch for stragglers when escorting large groups. The call command is a double-edged sword. While it allows you to move survivors faster than waypoints, every time you perform the call in a new direction, it stops survivors for a second so that they can track onto you, which can be all the time it takes for a zombie to grab them. And then a horde comes. And for the love of God, please give survivors guns and not melee weapons. Guns kill quick and survivors won't run up to zombies. You can set a waypoint and they'll pretty much clear out the waypoint and protect the other survivors who can't hold weapons. Oftentimes giving a survivor a melee weapon will cause them to go out of their way to kill a specific zombie, and now they're surrounded. If you need another reason to pick guns over melee weapons, just look at the aimbotting of this. After all this is said and done, why should you even bother with the survivors? Well, it's because it's the fastest way to level up. Everything else will give you like 500 PP for just killing like 50 zombies or something like that. But with this, you'll get like 20,000 PP per survivor. And the later that the game goes on, because there's more zombies, the survivors give off even more experience. It's fantastic. Now, you definitely don't have to save all these guys. You can probably just save a couple and get a couple good levels off them. The game wants you to collect these survivors, and a lot of the challenge comes from properly pathing these guys and keeping them alive. One of the most satisfying feelings in the whole game is when you save like 5 or 6 survivors. It can be really difficult, but at the same time, it feels like you've really done something. Dead Rising has bosses in the form of psychopaths, but the psychopaths are either difficult as hell or just piss easy. The second Carlito fight is an example of what most of the Dead Rising bosses are going to be. He dishes out a lot of damage and sends Frank flying, but if you come prepared and you close the gap between them, he dies extremely quickly. Most of the psychopaths are dangerous and can easily kill you, but you can do the same to them. This was a good design decision in my opinion. If these bosses had phases, then they would more than certainly put too much time pressure on the player. One thing that you can tell is that it's very apparent some of these guys got more love and attention than others. Adam has 3 moves that don't involve his chainsaws, which is the most apparent thing you're going to notice during this cutscene. And on top of that, Adam has plenty different types of chainsaws attacks as well. He'll also perform barrel rolls and dodges to close the gap on Frank. Meanwhile, look at the Hall family. All these guys do is shoot you. There's 3 of them, which is cool, but the moment you get close to them, all they do is run away. There are plenty of cool mechanics going on though. A cult spawns in halfway through day 2, and it will persist until the cult leader boss fight. Cliff, who is a Vietnam veteran and is suffering from PTSD, will hide on shelves and throw smoke grenades at you. These psychopaths offer a mix-up to the gameplay, and, you know, it adds a bonus effect to the time pressure. They're a lot of fun and they get easy when mastered, which I think is a good way to show player knowledge of the game. Of all the games in the franchise, the original Dead Rising is hands down the scariest. For one, this game is quiet. The mall music is played pretty quietly, so you're mostly just listening to Frank's breathing and the gargled sounds of zombies. The low polygon count works for the zombies as well. They feel empty and disjointed from the game. Also, the choice of making them grayish works incredibly well when compared to the survivors' bright colors. If you're squeamish, then this game might be too much for you. People get eaten a lot, and the bad survivor AI doesn't help the problem. If a survivor dies by a zombie under your care, then the game will play a cutscene of their death, and these can get quite gnarly. It's really strange though, these scenes exist on files in Dead Rising 2, but they're also so hard to implement they pretty much don't exist. Dead Rising focuses a lot more on the horror of zombies, more so than any of the other sequels, and I think it shines. The whole time I had survivors with me, I was tense because I wanted to avoid those cutscenes. I think that's just a good way of showing the pressure of the whole situation and why a lot of these survivors are having their miniature freakouts. Some final and fun little tips and details I'm going to give you are, you should really memorize the map. It's the most important advice I can give you, and while it's fun to pick up and kill zombies with shower heads, they aren't really effective. Learn where the secret Uzis are, and for the love of God, pick up the mini chainsaws. There's plenty of fun details in the game as well. Frank's running animations will change sometimes after getting bitten. The sandwich shop in the Paradise Plaza is named after a throwaway line in Resident Evil.
Close. You were almost a Jill sandwich.
And of course you can unlock the Mega Man Blaster, which you can tell that Capcom developers were having a lot of fun with the game. If you like a good challenge that requires planning or just want to blow some steam and slaughter zombies, then give the original Dead Rising a chance. It's not a masterpiece, but it's definitely a game that deserves your attention, even 13 years later. It's available for Xbox 360, Xbox One, PS4, and on Steam on PC. Thank you for watching, and if you enjoyed, then consider hitting that subscribe button.